Okay, dreams from Thursday, November 7th. But first, because I spent 2.5 hours redoing a dream I had already done, I wrote some pretty cool notes. Uh, let's see. Oh, yeah. So all of your dreams are information. So you can either ask God for the gift to interpret dreams, or you can ask God for discernment to interpret dreams. I always wanted to interpret dreams, and finally I just sat down and did it. And I told God, I think when we were first designing how my powers were going to work, that I wanted it to kind of be like a game board, so I knew like kind of what was coming, what was going on. And I remember it would take 4 great moments to get the gift of discernment. And so each of those moments was broken up into 4 to 16 prayers. So I did that until I felt each great moment light up. And then ever since then, I've been able to interpret dreams. They just come naturally to me. So let's see. Oh, in the dream where the bullet was going down, which I think is the last video, rocket bullet. So one thing I forgot is that in my dreams, my mind and my eye are kind of like a gun. Like, so when it comes to supernatural warfare, I bring a gun to a sword fight, which is how heaven represents that I always win. And that doesn't mean I don't suffer. There's a couple times when I had to fight the demonic or people, and it took a second. I had to be extra diligent. Let's see. Oh yeah, so the reason it was so big is God is giving me the Old Testament. So I've said I've had the Old Testament gift of the king, right? So right now we have the spiritual gifts of tongues, interpretation of tongues, faith, wisdom, discernment, miraculous wonder, healing, knowledge, and prophecy. So there's 9. They're from 1 Corinthians 12, 7 through 11. And I was watching a video from, I believe, Tomi Ariyomi, where he says, if you're depressed, it's likely that you're not depressed, but you have the calling of a prophet. And while there is depression in the world, it's largely due to us having no spiritual training. Like, you can learn to control your emotions, you can learn to control your thoughts, you can learn to control your body, so you don't just like rage out. But we're no longer taught how to control our spirits, and people in modern society act like that's no big deal. That'd be like trying to win over someone's heart without being able to say, I love you. Or God, trying to have a life where you could live without saying I love you, or have had that said to you too. So this big bullet is a big bullet that's also a rocket, is my Old Testament gift of prophecy, because the 3 Old Testament gifts were king, prophet, and priest. And so what I realized is the cars that were following me, if I look at their colors, because one was like very vivid green, one was very vivid blue, that always represents agape, which is the unconditional outpouring love that never runs out of heaven that we give towards each other. And the other one would be storge, which is kinship. So you can say like fellowship. And blue for me also represents joy. So anyways, it paused like halfway down the track. So I think that's around Thanksgiving. And then it I see it go, or no, it's here, and I see it go here, here. And that occurs to me that was bullets being loaded in a chamber. Now, I don't know why it looked beige, but I've been seeing myself move into an office, and the office walls were beige. So there might be like a time thing, or these things are coinciding in time. But if that bullet that's also a rocket is being loaded into the chamber, it probably means I'm also going to get the gift of the priest. I didn't think God gave that out anymore, but Tomi Ariyomi's twin brother Toby looks like, and then this other prophet Tess from England that I was watching, and I tried to look up the videos, but I couldn't find them, and I didn't want to spend like 2 hours looking for them when there's other stuff I have to get to, but I'll try to be more diligent in the future. I need to start outsourcing all this stuff. I need to make sure I do that when I run the company, and I can hire helpers. But yeah, he said God's going to start making prophet priests who are going to be like kingdom world leaders. So that was big because that was so loud. Moxie, you're hurting my ears. It's a lot of interruptions today. Are you done? Do I need to take a break? So, I didn't think heaven was still doing priests, but I guess so. The priests are largely in charge of like running the culture from like a heaven point of view. So if you don't have like a large education system, you develop cultural routines and habits that keep culture momentum going in a good direction. Like an example would be like, if there was a statue of Abraham Lincoln, if you bark again, I'm throwing you outside. And maybe, once a year you walk by to look at it to remember that slavery is wrong. That would be something kind of like a priestly duty. That hurt my ears. Okay, so how did I get to that note? So if you start working for heaven or doing works for heaven or trying to work for heaven, in the beginning there's a lot to learn. There's definitely a learning curve. And so with me, it was very hard for me because my gift of discernment activated when I was 5 because I asked for it. I didn't understand what I was asking, but I got it. Well, I did understand what I was asking. I just didn't know I'd be given it in such a big way. And there was a lot of times when authorities in the church thought I was evil or satanic. So I'd have these dreams where I'd see this darkness, and I thought dark meant evil. I thought black meant evil. And I eventually talked to a pastor named John McClure, who was just like the best pastor ever. Like he had so much goodness in him. When he talked, it was like honey coming from his lips. Just like, think of someone kind of like Mr. Rogers, but different. But that's I'm gonna put you outside. Do it again, you outside and go chase squirrels. What was I saying? So I had to learn a lot to prove to myself I wasn't evil. Oh yeah, so John McClure said, black or darkness doesn't always mean evil. It can mean mystery. And I was like, oh, and he didn't look at me like I was evil. Actually, I don't think any of the prophets or wise men ever did. It's mainly the lower level people. I guess the moral of the story is trust the elders, not the people who claim to be elders. But this was an important one. Matthew 7:17 through 20. A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. So basically, if you look at what you're doing and it's good, you can be positive that you're working for good. If you look at what you're doing and it's bad, you're getting into fights, you're beating each other, you're beating people up, you're the riches you have, you stole. Then you're you're approaching life in a bad way and you need to move towards what is righteous. Oh, that bark hurt my head. Oh, okay, so when my daughter was at the gym, I realized her outfit kind of looked like what that Olympian gymnast, I don't know her last name, but her name's Sean, was wearing. It looked kind of like that, but with blue, I think kind of for deep thought, and that pink cream color of heaven. So I think she wanted to be an Olympic competitor. Or maybe she was an Olympic competitor, or maybe, Olympic tryouts, I don't know, or early Olympic warm-ups. So that was good. And she definitely had power because she jumped so high and then landed in my arms, which was just awesome. Okay, so the last thing I wrote, it's a really good Bible verse, and I'd been praying to re-find it for a long time. It was one of the most impactful Bible verses of my time because I think my brother was trying to tell me that nobody really knows God, but that's incorrect. And that'll happen to you a lot too as you start to work in this. Make sure you know your source material, because well-meaning Christians will say things that are true-ish but not actually biblical. So this is a really good one. John chapter 15, verse 15. No longer I call you servants, or you could say Padawan if you want to be more of a Jedi. For the servant does not know what his master is doing. Master means master craftsman or sensei. You could translate that to teacher. But the master has mastered a craft and is teaching you as an apprentice or student. But I have called you friends. Now they use the word philia here, so that means friendship. Because all things that I heard from my Father, I have made known to you. So Jesus is telling the disciples, I've taught you everything there is to know. And granted, God is living, so he grows too, even though he doesn't grow too. He grows with us in his love for us, and then reveals prizes and presents that he chose to create always as he saw how we behaved with him. It gets funky because God lives outside of time and we don't. So yeah, and then there's another thing that says, my way is straight, my burden is light. So if people are making you feel like Christianity is a burden, they're not your teachers. They're doing a bad job. And then Christianity is always supposed to be very simple. We chase after God, basically. What are the 2 commandments that everything's based on? Kind of love your God with everything you've got. That's the love, unconditional love from the word agape. And then have unconditional love for your neighbor as you have unconditional love for yourself, and that's also agape. And a neighbor doesn't mean another Christian. It could be just about anybody. Anybody who's got your back. Because the term neighbor comes from the story of the Good Samaritan, where a guy got beat up and left for dead. And this Samaritan, who the Jews weren't supposed to interact with really because they weren't Jewish, comes and saves his life. And so Jesus is saying it's okay. And Paul says the same thing. You can live in the world and not of it. It's okay. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm gonna go and start working on those other dreams that I wanted to get out, etc., 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 etc. Man, I started at 2, it's 6. No, I started at 3, it's 6 now, and I've barely done anything. And that's upsetting, but I gotta walk it off. All right. Okay, that took a while, and that was frustrating. I took a break to get some food. And that was a mistake. I need to stop eating junk food because when you start doing your own cooking, the food's better. And I need to stop drinking soda. I was doing really good. I think because I was working out on my off days, when you work out, you don't want to ruin your workout by eating, soda is pretty much a slice of cake in liquid form. Okay, so these are all of my dreams from Thursday, which was, if I could find the thing, the 7th. Okay, and I don't know if I'm going to start reading all of my dreams, but this one had my future wife in it, and I've been told by a prophet my future wife is watching. So I'm trying to bring up all videos that are about her. So, okay, the first one was about a friend's mom. I lived with this family for a while, and I think what's happening is this person knows I'm talking about them, and they were very for it, but now that it's not so much a fantasy, there's a real chance and choice and follow through. Like, she has to reach out to me, and that's scary, and so she might be having second thoughts, and heaven is going to respect that. So now it's going from like somebody who's potentially a mom and somebody who's potentially part of the church, because I do ministry, podcast ministry, and then somebody who is stable and supportive and loving and a role model type is being represented here. So in the dream, she's making popcorn, and it was really slow, like pop, pop, pop. And I was watching it, and I knew there was like all this energy moving around the bag if she just activated it. And that's probably the heart. Her heart's probably like waking up, coming alive with dreams and, I don't know, maybe clever, good animosity towards chaos. But I grab the bag by the corner and I just shake it, and then all the popcorn goes pop, and I go, there you go. I shook it, and all the heat released through the whole bag at once. And so my friend's mom is named Elizabeth. So I looked up the name Elizabeth, and it means God is bountiful. So that's good. And what is it? Then we were somewhere that had to do with a medical conference or a math class. I think this person is involved with healing somehow, and it's technicalities. I'm also involved with healing. And then in my dream, I explained I largely ignore these things because it's just the medical industry, explaining why the medical industry needs money for the medical industry. And I think what that means is, since I can heal without needing anything but prayer, I kind of tune a lot of that stuff out. And one of my aspirations is to bring medicine to the cheap, because the medical industry does evil things to make it expensive. Yeah. Okay, so that was the end of that one. Okay, and then this next dream, it was Aang and Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Sokka's kind of the leader of the group who does tactics and planning, and Aang is the superhero of the group. He's the superhero of the group. He's possessed by the Avatar spirit, and he has like ultimate power. So I think those are the two sides of me: the dark part that had to sit in the back and train and suffer, and the living part that had to exercise and grow and become wise. There was like this blue backdrop, this backdrop of blue and green lights like stars. And so I think it represented God's eternal love, my gift of joy, my gift of storge, which is kinship and fellowship, and also kind of Christmas, because it was kind of Christmas lighty. Mom was there somewhere. Okay. We were waiting, and Aang ate a bunch of food. And we're staring at this generator, because I'm trying to make Christian generators. So like get people like me into certain areas and then give them the authority to give out the gifts more. So we can have generator places. And then I have this sneaking suspicion that in order to heal and on a large scale, I need to kind of like jazz up God, get God either by fasting or praying or worship. And then once God declares he's here, then I should be able to heal. But that's kind of the battle plan, and I'm kind of testing the parts and seeing if I can get a reaction, and then seeing if I can run a generator. So that's kind of what's happening. So it's like this nuclear, if you ever seen a nuclear power plant, it kind of looks like a dome. But so instead of a dome, it was pure energy that was spinning, like pure light, like possessed light. And there's these big I-beams, like 4 times, no, like this, the I-beam you'd see in like a building. They were probably like a foot across, a foot, and then they were bent over the generator. So the generator's kind of in crude form right now, but it works, and so we're watching it. And so it was slowing down because it was changing direction. So like things are on the move, things are changing, and we knew it was time to walk through if we wanted to walk through. And there was a lemur bat, because in Avatar they have Momo. And I thought it must hard to train animals. I've always kind of thought that. And then this girl in my head, I think that's my future wife, said, these guys are really smart. And I felt bad because animals had to trust you to not be stupid when you call them to you. So, because like, and I kind of feel like that's how it is with the church. Like, you get called to go to church, and you go to church, and the pastor doesn't really know what he's doing or knows what he's talking about, and talks all over the place. Meanwhile, you just want some answers and not to feel evil or hated. Or maybe you want some hugs and kisses, and you don't get that. And so that's kind of my internal conflict. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good churches in America. When it comes to which part of the body of God I am, it's the fingertips. I'm the one who goes the farthest away from the churches, and I rescue the people who are lost in the desert and in hell and just unsavable, full of hate. I have programs for prisons, so I want to minister to the rapists and the molesters, and that's a big, hard deal, but I want to bring everyone to Christ. Remember, one of the first people Jesus saves was the guy who died next to him, who was convicted of like every sin, because being crucified was like the worst punishment. Oh yeah, I was thinking how one, foolishness or stupid can kill a delight, something cherished and good and pure, the Disney animations and the comics and the delightful dessert. So that was kind of like me warning myself, don't do something foolish or stupid, or you could lose all this. Because remember, I used to trip over porn. And I solved that mainly by moving my computer to my friend's house. My phone has a lock on it. My phone doesn't allow internet except through apps, and my iPad is the same way. Now, I've gotten it down to 1/1000th what it was, because it turned out my problem was I was raised by a lot of smart people who knew a lot about Christianity, but it turns out I was working so hard to unlearn the bad information and put down good information where there was bad information. I never thought to take my good information out and put down great information. So that was a big problem. So recently I've been talking to God about my darker thoughts, and we've been deciding what to do with them. So some of them we turn into good thoughts, some of them we turn into productive thoughts, and some of them we turn into playful thoughts. Yeah. Because my gift of discernment kicked on so fast, I had to master being a grown-up before I got to master being a kid. So I'm really good at big problems. I'm not so good at small problems that are important. Okay. So next stream, because like I'll wake up and fall back asleep, or I'll wake up and record it on my phone, and then I will go back to sleep and sometimes get more. I think for a while it was really weird. I'd like fall asleep for a minute, be like, oh, I record it, and I fall asleep for a minute, oh. And you know, when you're doing supernatural things and you've always wanted to do supernatural things, you want to make the most of doing supernatural things. So I've been praying for a lot of celebrities, and I don't know why I have this feeling that God's going to do something with Taylor Swift. So I've been praying for Taylor Swift. Like, I pray for people. It's what I do because I like to pretend I'm a wizard or Jedi. So I saw Taylor Swift on the edge of all this. So it was like like it was like a picture, but it was like moved aside a little bit, and there was like this dark spot, and she was sitting there in contemplation. So I think my prayers are being answered, that God is talking to her, and she's having a reflective, emotional, intellectual moments, which is just awesome. Like, even if she doesn't choose to do anything with God, that's just great that we have this power to bring heaven to those we love. So if you're a Taylor Swift fan, you can pray for her and she'll have a better life, or a more fulfilled life, or, you know, be able to more easily get over issues that might be bothering her that are private. Oh, she was wearing purple, and I feel like there are potential special plans, so she'll have to choose. She's kind of living a very successful life, and people don't always want to change. It doesn't mean I'm calling her to change, but she might. You know, I think she's like 34 now, and she's been doing this a while. I don't know. Okay, and then the next dream, it was this weird, like, angled counter, but it moved like a freeway, but it was like looping in within itself. And then it was like a counter at a restaurant where you can open the side and walk through. So I think it means we're coming to the intricate overpass where all the roads meet, and we can walk inside and start feeding people. Because ministry is, being a shepherd is like, well, being a shepherd. The Bible doesn't actually use the term pastor, it uses shepherd. And a shepherd's job is to look after, protect, and feed the sheep. And we can forget that sometimes. Let's see. I took a break, I got some food. Okay, I'll stop and start this. So I was at a church, like near a cabin. There was like trees and stuff. There was a sermon, so I'm inside and I'm kind of up, and I turn and I look down, and my future wife walks by, or the person that is currently in line to be my future wife. Because she can always decide not to, and heaven will respect her desire not to, and then heaven and I will talk about someone else, because that's the way it works. It was a revelation. It was closer to a revelation than a prophecy, although probably a little bit of both. A revelation is probably the line where knowledge and prophecy kind of meet. Anyways, she can say no, because heaven's not going to force you. I don't want to marry someone who doesn't want to marry me. That'd be weird. So I nodded to her. I'm looking down, I nodded at her, and she nodded at me, because I didn't want her to be overwhelmed. I tried to look focused, hoping she'd recognize my body language intent. She was wearing red and black, which are also power and mystery. I waited for the sermon to be over, and then around Christmas trees, which reminded me of a local church I used to attend. And then I remember she's like closer than I think. Afterwards, I didn't want to scare or intimidate her, so I waited, and then I walked around barefoot. I went back. I didn't want to leave my iPhone and iPad. I collected them in my boots. I went off to the side, hoping she'd see me. And I kept thinking, like, hi, I don't know if you've met me, but I can heal people, which has been a common thing that I've thought about bringing up, but I don't want to manipulate myself into her heart. So I'm not going to say that. But you know, the man in me who wants to play the effective strategy wants to play that card. And I'm like, no. She has to choose to love me, not love me because I'm overwhelmingly awesome. Even though I am. Don't worry, if you ask me if you were overwhelmingly awesome, I'd say yes, but also make sure you work with God to accomplish your dreams and callings, so you can be awesome twice. I could hear her over like this hill because I was looking for her, but I didn't want to interrupt her, and I didn't know how God was going to introduce us. And while I'm recording this dream, my spirit is trembling, which was awesome because that means like heaven is working, I'm working, things are working, heavenly powers like flowing through this moment in history. I was putting on my boots without socks because I needed space because the boots hurt my feet. And then there was this old woman kind of near the top part of the hill. And she needed help, but she was talking in gibberish. I was frustrated because I didn't think God was there, even though I knew he was. And that was really weird. So I think I was being pushed into an unfortunate situation. I mean, it was fortunate, but like I was being pushed to be frustrated because I think my future wife was up on the hill and needed to see how I handled being frustrated, how I handled things not going my way. And that was great. You know, I'm happy to demonstrate who I really am. There was this old man with her that I think was a member of the family, probably her husband. He said she's always like that. He was super friendly and loving and kind and had kinship. Like I could feel this. So I asked this woman who was kind of trying to hide her face if she needed prayer. And I prayed for her and she kept talking in gibberish. And I asked what 3 times. Like I was like, what? And she like did gibberish. I was like, what? And then I was like, man, maybe I need to increase my gift of discernment because I'm not hearing her. And then when I'm writing this, I'm like, oh, you know what it is? I didn't increase my gift of interpretation of tongues. So I think she was speaking in tongues. And interpretation of tongues is the least worked on gift I have because not only do I have to increase my gifts by praying, like, please increase my gift of prophecy, I need to then get used to having the gifts at that level and becoming familiar with that. But interpretation of tongues is probably the weakest one for me. And then as I figure this out, I start to pray that I can understand. And so I think that's why I start understanding her. Finally, she said, yes or no questions only. She said, God is the Almighty. And I said, yes. And she said, God, and she said something, I don't remember the exact words. And I said, that's a statement, not a question. And she said, yeah. And then she continued, I'm really hurting because my son died and I'm not over it. And I said, well, you had these fights with your son and you need to be okay with that, but you also need to forgive yourself and heal. And I think I knew that information supernaturally, like just by looking at her or because I had this dream now. So when I meet her in the future, I'll know what's going on because of this dream. What else? She was crying and I was holding her and her husband was there. And then I walked away. Oh, no. The husband said the family liked shrimp and she hasn't cooked shrimp as a main course since then. I told her, you need to do that. You need to get over that. And she said, okay. And I do that not to be mean, but to help people's hearts re-engage. You kind of need somebody to like push you to turn over that gear so they can remember how to use that muscle. I made an assumption in the dream that I think she already knew, so I didn't go over it. Plus, there was time. I didn't want to spend 20 minutes when I was looking for my wife. I wanted to do it in 5. But I normally tell people, you know, if your son was a believer and you're a believer, you're going to be together forever. We're only alive so long on this earth, and it's understandable you're miserable with someone you loved so dearly. But they're in heaven, and if you pray to God a lot, he'll show you. But going to heaven is special, so pray a lot. Okay, so there was this area, there's this place where you could stand and cosplay being a Jedi, or this worker told me, and he appeared early in the dream when I put away the lightsaber and the guard, because they were like under the kneeling area, kind of like at a Catholic church. So the maintenance worker, I think, is the Holy Spirit. He was like this kind of brown rust color, so I guess the color of like life. And so what's interesting is I woke up and I was recording this and I was kind of frustrated. I was like, where am I going to meet her? Like, because I don't want to meet somewhere in Austin where it's like dark, you know, because a lot of like the jazz rooms are kind of like, you know, and the nicer restaurants. There's just areas where I wanted somewhere great, and I realized this was a local church, and I'm like, you know what a great place to meet, because a lot of the local churches have on-duty officers actually, and they'll have, you know, they're safe, and it's public, and if she sees me and she decides she doesn't like me, she can leave, and it's just like that, you know, and I think that's great. And so I realized a cosplay area, you can dress up as an action figure. And then I realized that the area I was thinking of, there was benches, and that was a local church. And I was like, that's great. I'm sorry if I said that again. I get so many dreams and then so many messages, and I have so many things I need to do and work out and talk to God. And it's a lot. And I think I need to learn to outsource more work, which, growing pains. Okay. Start a new video. So there's this YouTube channel with this kid and this dad. You've probably seen it. Anyways, this dad grabs a glass out of the cabinet, an upper cabinet, and the son from upstairs says, "Dad, is it 3 o'clock already?" And the dad says, "No, why would you say that?" And the kid says, "I hear you grabbing your bourbon glass." And the dad's like, "Oh, I'm drinking too early," and my kid's finding out. Okay, so in another dream, or in the dream shifts, and I'm talking to that dad, and he's kind of kneeling, and I'm standing there, and I'm kind of the kid, but I'm older. And the dad goes, "You're getting taller, aren't you?" And the kid goes, "Yeah," or "Yeah." And the dad says, "Okay, then, you're getting taller." And the next thing is the alcohol is getting poured out, and his eyes kind of rolling back. And I realize that's because I'm working through a lot of these. I thought they were big issues because they kind of controlled me, but there's this Mr. Rogers episode I remember where, what's his name, Guy Freely, is that his name, the mailman? Talks about how people think problems are really big, but sometimes they're just bubbles. You just pinch the bubble and it pops. And I feel like that was a lot of my last problems, was just solving these emotional nuances that were really small. And so this alcoholism that has to do with pornography has almost all but completely left me. When Rebecca and I pray in the morning, what we do is pray that I can conquer sobriety and teach what I've learned to everyone else. So I think I've mastered sobriety. I just need to triple check it now. It turns out a lot of sobriety is, I think I said it before, might have been in the other video, that we're taught how to be mentally mature or strong, and physically mature and strong and have self-control, and emotionally mature and strong and have self-control. But we're not taught spiritually to be mature or have self-control. And there's not a lot of people who do miracles, and I've been doing them since I was 5, so I had a lot of back and forth, but now I'm learning how to strengthen my superpowers and my spiritual self, and to see into the spirit realm and thwart stuff. Oh yeah, okay, so there's I think this is a second part of that part of the dream. There's all these like townhouses circling me, and it looked like they kind of had an eye. Like one of the windows was so big it looked like an eye, and I had a pool cue, and like I was leaning over to play pool, and I put the cue back and it broke one of the eyes open. So I guess this small part of me that had been trapped is finally able to get out. And that's my dreams from Thursday. And now I have a whole bunch more to go over. Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Let's anchor that in with some scripture. Proverbs 16:3. Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be achieved. So I really like that, because a lot of people will say like, "Oh, this isn't going to happen," or "This can't happen." And no, there's all these verses where God says, "If 2 of you come to pray, I will do it. Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be achieved." Knock and the door will be open, seek and you'll find, ask and you'll receive, and because of your tenacity, you'll get what you want. And this is from the Bible. So people like to disagree with the Bible when it seems too good to be true. And it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like, the Bible says it's going to happen, and you're going to say, well, but it's like, no. Stop telling people not to dream. Anyway, I love you guys.